League of Legends lore community has three kinds of people. Those who read all the stories and are surprised how deep it is, those who are too lazy to read the stories and so they come to our channel, and those who are too lazy to look at pictures. And that's why you are here. About 3 months ago, Riot released the first issue of Ashe Warmother. It was a small beginning to a form of storytelling that might bring in something big later on. Especially since we know that a comic about Zed is coming, and especially if you know how the Warmother series ends. You know that Riot's comics should not be taken lightly from the view of someone who cares about the lore. But because looking at the issues one by one, as we tried, isn't nearly as effective as summing up the entire story this series is supposed to represent, we will now have a look at all 4 issues in one fell swoop. So, let's get right into it. The very first scene of this comic series reveals that it is a story told by Ashe. It is her talking about her past. She first introduces her mother, Grenna. She also mentions that Grenna was known as the Spear or the Axe. In Freljord, Iceborne warriors were often affiliated with their weapons. Remember this because it will return later. Unfortunately, Grenna was hot-headed, which was likely one of the reasons why she was the leader of their tribe. When Ashe's aunt, Helner, tried to reason with her, by telling her that bloodshed isn't the only answer to their survival, farming is also a way to survive winter. Grenna didn't listen, and the 2 Iceborne sisters fought for the leadership of their tribe. In the end, Grenna stood victorious, but Malcolm, the tribal frost priest, confirmed that Helner was just knocked unconscious. She wouldn't die that day. Through fights like these, Grenna formed a circle of followers called Bloodsworn. These warriors were dedicated to give their lives for her, and their next target were the Ice Children. Even though they were weakened and harsh weather was coming, Grenna had the final word, and so they would raid their tribe in the morning and take what they need to survive the winter. Later, Ashe went to check on her mother. Here we realize that Grenna has other issues than just hot-headedness. Apparently she'd been gathering maps of Freljord and maps of stars, because Grenna wanted to find the throne of Avarosa, a place that existed in legends that only the children and the mad believed. After a short conversation between Ashe and her mother, we learned that Grenna wanted to find this legendary place to bring their tribe back to greatness. She also wanted to see if Ashe is ready to become a true Iceborne, because should Grenna fall, Ashe had to be ready to become the next Warmother. In the next scene, we were able to witness the test of the Iceborne. The original Iceborne were Freljordians who lived during the times when Lysandra made a deal with the Watchers. The Freljordian tribes would prepare Runeterra for the arrival of the Watchers, and in return, the Watchers would lend them their power, thus creating the Iceborne. So the current Iceborne warriors are those whose bloodline is connected to the ancient Freljordians. But prior to this scene, we never really knew what it meant to be an Iceborne. Besides their high resilience against cold weather, the Iceborne can also wield true ice, which is a tainted form of ice, likely connected to the Watchers as well. But only true Iceborne can even touch true ice weapons, because the pain of its cold is unbearable. When Grenna asked Ashe to choose a weapon, Ashe chose the axe. But since we all know that Ashe isn't destined to wield an axe, we all know she failed the test. The next morning, the tribe was on the move. They were going to raid the Ice Children. Here we got another character introduced, Yrel, known as the Ring, one of Ashe's 5 Oath Fathers. Just like her mother, Yrel also pushed Ashe to become a Warmother. But Ashe reminded everyone that her aunt Helner, the one who just lost a duel for leadership, had a daughter and she had as much claim to leadership as Ashe. With that, the tribe departed. As they journeyed southwest, they faced what Freljord truly had to offer. The Bloodsworn were fine in these harsh conditions, but their tribe wasn't just full of Bloodsworn people. They also had the Hearthbound, and they were the ones who usually paid the ultimate price. Malcolm did whatever he could to heal the wounded. Although he was a Frost Priest, most of which act in the service of the cult of the Three Sisters. Malcolm was Ashe's friend, and he was the speaker for the Hearthbound. Without him, most of their tribe would never make it to their destination. While their people suffered as they traveled, Grenna was still lost in her maps. After a week of marching, they finally arrived in the Ice Children's territory. Fortunately, the enemy left behind an Elnug herd, enough of them to survive the winter. But Grenna knew the enemy retreated because they had something more important to protect. Something like the throne of Avarosa. So she ordered to keep going. Malcolm advised against it, and when Grenna ignored him, the two started the fight. Malcolm's magic was enough to hold against Grenna, but when Grenna stepped in for the killing blow, Ashe interrupted her and saved him. After this, Grenna let the Hearthbound go home, while the rest continued. The Bloodsworn marched for 6 more days. At this point, most of them were without food, and Grenna herself hadn't slept for days. When Ashe went to check up on her again, Grenna had a breakdown. She was chasing a legend she was never able to reach. Unfortunately, after their quiet moment, their people got ambushed. Which leads us to issue number 2. The approaching enemy were the Draklorn, a group of fanatic frost priests fighting for the cult of the Three Sisters. The first to face them was Yorel with his 2 hammers. He was Ash's protector, her teacher, but most importantly, Yorel was one of Ash's fathers, and he was the first one to die protecting their tribe. As more Bloodsworn sacrificed their lives to slow the enemy, the rest of their group retreated over a nearby bridge. Ash tried to sacrifice herself next, so that her mother could go forth and find the throne. But it was Grenna herself who marched towards the enemy to save Ash. Grenna died in the following battle, but the rest of the group destroyed the bridge to slow the enemy even further. At this point, only Ash and her last 2 fathers remained, but even they had to eventually give their lives to help Ash escape. So Ash continued alone, following her mother's map, with the enemy marching behind her. When she finally dragged herself on top of the highest cliff where the map ended, Ash found nothing. That was the hard truth about the legend of the throne of Avarosa. It was a legend to encourage the helpless. Desperate to die with honor, to die fighting, Ash searched the frozen waste for a rusty weapon, but there was nothing. When the enemy approached, they didn't attack straight away. Instead, their leader stopped as he took off his helmet, revealing that the enemy was Malcolm all along. Malcolm revealed that he never wanted this bloodshed. Had the Bloodsworn ran, they would have survived. In fact, their tribe was alive only because Malcolm promised his masters he could stop Ash from following Grenna's insanity. Because remember, Lysandra's ultimate quest is to erase all memories of Avarosa from Freljord. But Ash didn't care about any of that. She inherited Grenna's hot head, and she saw Malcolm as a traitor. Using clever tricks, Ash was able to kill Malcolm's 2 guards. But in the end, Malcolm caught Ash by the neck, and he was ready to strangle her, revealing that he was in fact in love with her. But since Ash was an Iceborn, she felt true ice in the rubble around her, and when she reached for it, she found her destined true ice weapon, her bow. Its power surged through her, allowing her to fight Malcolm back, and ultimately kill him in the end. The second issue ends with a final scene where the sun illuminated the frozen waste, revealing it to be a massive battle frozen in time. The next issue starts with Ash visiting her village, or at least what was left of her village. It was nothing but a ruin, and all the Bloodsworn were gone. So Ash knew she was truly alone now, and being alone in Freljord meant certain death. She marched to the frozen sea on her own, which meant that she had to go through the Ursine territory. And if you know anything about the Ursine, you know that this likely isn't just an animal. Anyway, on her journey, Ash faced a massive frostworm. In this region, they call it Grelfine. It was a beast she wasn't likely to slay alone, but thankfully a member of the Ursine jumped in, and together they slayed the beast. However, Ash was still trespassing the Ursine hunting grounds, so even though they defeated the beast together, neither of them put down their weapons. There was a tense moment, but in the end, the Ursine was revealed to actually not be an Ursine. In reality, it was Sejuani. At this point, there are major tie-ins to the story of Sejuani and the Ursine, so I highly recommend watching our video on that topic. But anyway, Sejuani told Ash that the Winter's Claw is now being led by a coward, and Ash replied that her own tribe is now gone. After this, the two cut the beast into chunks of meat, so they could leave the Ursine territory as fast as possible. But they weren't fast enough, and the Volibear itself noticed them. Now, if you have no idea what this is, again, the Ursine story will make it clear. It's not so easy to explain it now. Thankfully, the horse of the Volibear can't cross flowing water, so Ash and Sejuani escaped unharmed. For the following week, they sailed along the edges of the Forbidden Lands, hunting for meat, sharing stories and heartbreaks. They haven't seen each other in 5 years before this encounter, so they had a lot to catch up on. But after this week of bonding, they finally arrived in the village of the Winter's Claw. The thing is that the Frost Priests were looking for Ash, and the Frost Priests were in nearly all tribes, so they had to hide Ash's identity. When they docked the ship, they were met by Kalkia, the Warmother of the Winter's Claw, who was surrounded by 3 Frost Priests. Ash was an outsider to them, and Kalkia would offer shelter only for truth. Now, Ash knew that the Frost Priest could see through lies, and she also knew that it was the Frost Priest who kept the Ursine at bay, but still, she lied to them. She told them that her ship was attacked by the Frostworm and Sejuani saved her. Of course, the Frost Priest saw through it, and it started a conflict between Kalkia and Sejuani. Kalkia didn't trust Ash, but Sejuani did, and if it wasn't for Sejuani, the tribe wouldn't have food at all. After this, Kalkia backed away, and Ash unloaded the food from the ship, giving it to the villagers and winning their favor. This leads us to the final issue It starts with a feast for the entire village. The first scene reveals that Kalkia is in fact Sejuani's mother, and we learn that through a long and very drunk conversation. And as drunk conversations with parents usually go, the child was hit and taunted before the child ran away. Meanwhile, the Frost Priest of Winterclaw plotted how to get rid of Ash. They had plans to kill Sejuani in an accident, but Avarosans had to be killed in a more direct way. The scene then goes back to Sejuani again, in her hideout. It was her grandmother's grave. And here the story revealed Sejuani's plans. The next day, Sejuani would lead a raid against a nearby village to prove that she can lead the Winter's Claw. She would achieve this with the help of Urkath, a berserk warrior, and his brothers. But the only issue is that they had to leave someone alive, so that there would be witnesses to her glory. Now back at the feast, the Frost Priest tried to directly assassinate Ash, but Sejuani was fast and she saved her friend. In fact, Sejuani named Ash her battle sister, which was a bond that would make an outsider a member of their tribe. But Kalkia wouldn't allow the ceremony to go through. That night was reserved for celebrations, and instead they would have to figure out what to do with Ash in the morning. Of course, these words didn't stop them. And in secret, Ash and Sejuani went through the ceremony anyway, and they became battle sisters. After this, Sejuani began the raid. Together with Ash and the Berserk warriors, they marched on the Ibratal tribe, old allies to the Winter's Claw. As you can imagine, it was a slaughter. The village was on fire and old friendships were broken with blood. The worst thing is that oath breaking is the worst crime a tribe can do. And so there had to be no witnesses. Everything had to be burned to the ground. Ash couldn't watch Sejuani do this, and she decided to stop her. Sejuani explained that these people were leeching off of the Winter's Claw, and they were responsible for their misfortune. But in reality, these people had to die so Sejuani would win the favor of her people. Then she would take over Winter's Claw and Ash would survive. These people had to die so Ash would live. But that didn't matter to Ash. They were still butchering them. After this, a short battle between Sejuani and Ash broke out, and Ash got knocked on the ground. The two argued about their past lives, and about Ash's mother, Grenna. To Sejuani, she was a hero. To Ash, she was a failure. In the end, Ash proposed a different end to their conflict. Since there had to be no witnesses, Ash offered herself to sail these villagers over the sea, to a place where no one would know about them. Sejuani accepted this proposal and she let Ash sail away. But should they ever meet again, in Sejuani's eyes, Ash would be a traitor and an enemy. The story ends with Ash taking the surviving people to a safe place. There they would all become Avarosans, and Ash, who was known as the Bow, would become a Warmother. So that is the complete story of the Warmother series. Technically, there is more story we can cover, since Ash also has her base story. And together with that, there is Tryndamere, who is closely bound to her. But it's amazing to see that Riot managed to explain why Sejuani and Ash hate each other, or at least why Sejuani is hostile towards Ash. And they also explained why are the Avarosans still alive. It is technically an entirely different tribe now. But hey, Ash is still there, so they are still Avarosans. But I believe that will be it for the Freljordian stories for a while now. Next, I think we should shift our focus towards the Shadow Isles, because the Lord of Metal is on the horizon. Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have neat mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.